I want to discuss the emotional turmoil, the existential crises, and all the tears that go behind quitting your full-time job in order to do your side hustle. For some people, this might be a no-brainer decision, and maybe they do it and it's not a big deal. But it took me 6 months in order to quit my job to do my business Recloseted full-time. It took me half a year to build up the courage to do it, even though logically on paper, I knew I could replace my corporate salary. I knew I had personal savings. I knew I had business savings. But even with all of that stuff on paper checking out, I still could not do it. I just felt so paralyzed and I didn't have the courage to do it. If you're one of those people that are able to just quit your job and do your thing, I applaud you. I think that is amazing and I am so jealous. But if that's not you and you're like me and you overthink everything and you run a little bit anxious, then this video is for you. I side hustled for a few years and I got it to a place where I knew I had a really good product, I had a really good community, and I knew what my sales levers were. I covered all the bases I talked about in my last video where I talked about how to turn your side hustle into your main hustle. I also saved enough business runway and enough personal savings in order to be comfortable. All of that on paper checked out. But emotionally, I just still could not bring myself to do it. I was raised by Asian immigrant parents, and Asian immigrant parents really value security and stability, which makes sense because when my parents immigrated to Canada, which is where I'm from, they had a lot of instability. And what success looked like to them was a stable, cushy corporate job. And parents always want to protect their children. And so for me, they were always so happy I had a stable corporate career. And the thought of me giving that up to do entrepreneurship is obviously scary for them because they want what's best for me and they want me to be stable and secure. That being said, nothing in the world is ever truly stable or secure because you could get let go, you could get fired from your job. And really, what's your security net? I have talked about this before on this channel, is your skill sets and your expertise and your confidence and being able to know that you can take care of yourself. Anyways, I digress, but the corporate job was instilled in me from a very young age by my parents, which is fine. That's the way society is. And that obviously affected my mindset about quitting my job. And then on top of that, the scariness of never having done something like this before, and also never having had trust myself in such a deep way before, because I was taking a leap of faith. I was taking a leap into trusting that I could figure it out, into trusting that I would be able to do it. There was just a lot going on. Like I mentioned, it took me 6+ months to get to a point where I could quit. I want to prevent you from having to and haw over it for 6 months as well. So let me break down what I did to help me. The first thing I did was to fully look at my corporate career and come to a decision exclusive of Recloseted to be like, this isn't working for me anymore. At my old corporate job, I don't mean to humble brag, but I was getting promotion after promotion. And before I left, I was at a senior position. It was basically the most senior position you could be before being a manager. And I knew in my heart of hearts that I did not want to be a manager at this company because I saw what all the other managers had to go through and it just did not seem very fun. I knew I had reached a ceiling in terms of my career at that company. I could not see myself doing what the managers, directors, or VPs at that company were doing. So I knew I had tapped out career progression wise. Irrespective of Recloseted, I probably would have needed to find another job or another company anyways because I just wasn't feeling fulfilled anymore. And that was really helpful because it wasn't like I was just quitting this amazing job that was perfect for me to do this. Like this job wasn't working already. And so irrespective of Recloseted, I would have had to make a change. When you quit a job, people are like, yeah, you're quitting something that doesn't work anymore and you should just move on to the next thing. And people gloss over the fact that you might feel some type of way about that, and that's okay. I remember feeling really sad about it, even though I couldn't see myself at that company anymore and I knew I had tapped out career progression wise. It didn't negate the fact that I felt sad about it because I had worked at that company for 5 years of my life. It was my first big girl job out of school, and so I had built up a lot of time there. I had made a lot of coworker friends. I had built up a really good reputation. It is normal to grieve that, and I did need to allow myself to grieve it because even though it was no longer for me and even though I was moving on to something better that I chose for myself, it still doesn't negate the fact that it's sad and that you may want to process and have closure from that. So I would allow yourself to do that. Like, even if you absolutely hate your job, I still think you need to have closure, and I still think you need to grieve and end that chapter of your life properly before you move on to the next thing. And so that was the first thing that really helped me, just recognizing that even without recloseted, something needed to change because I wasn't happy with my job and I wasn't happy with my career. And then the second thing is this book I have right here. And I talk about this book all the time. It's called The Mountain Is You. It's by Brianna Wiest. I have put all my friends on it. I've put all my clients on it. And I have read this book now probably 7 times. Every 6 months or so, I come back to it. And it's really interesting because different parts of the book will speak to me because I'm going through something different. It's essentially a book all about self-sabotage and limiting beliefs. This book really helped give me the courage to quit my job at the time. I also want to read you just the first part of the first chapter. There is nothing holding you back in life more than yourself. If there is an ongoing gap between where you are and where you want to be, and your efforts to close it are consistently met with your own resistance, pain, and discomfort, self-sabotage is almost always at work. And so, first 2 sentences hit really hard for me. And then she goes through all these different things, and I'm not going to read all of it because I do think you should get it and read it if you haven't already. But there's so many concepts, like the fact that self-sabotage is a coping mechanism. She talks about how our brains are wired for comfort and stability and security, kind of like I talked about at the beginning of the video. All I had ever known is working a corporate job and doing a side hustle. And so the thought of doing something different terrified me, and my brain wanted to protect me. While that's very helpful from an evolutionary perspective back in the day when we were hunting and gathering and all this stuff, nowadays in modern day society, no longer as helpful and actually prevents us from being successful and pursuing what we really want. Another concept that I found really helpful is the concept on the baseline and the upper limits. She talks about how in our minds, we have a baseline of what we will tolerate in terms of what's going well and what's not going well in our life. There's also subconsciously an upper limit we have too. Like sometimes we get so uncomfortable with how happy we get. A goal in life is actually to continually shift your baseline and continually break through your upper limit. I had realized that I just felt so comfortable and stable in what I was doing that it was just so daunting to be able to change that. Anyways, this is a really, really helpful book, and I would highly recommend it. I will say the first 2/3 of the book is very, very helpful, and then the last 1/3, she kind of summarizes it. It's just so good. So I had closure around my corporate career. I grieved it. I read the book. The next thing that really helped me was to come to terms with the fact that I could not keep doing what I was doing. Because as you can imagine, I was so burnt out. I was working my 9-to-5 job that was quite demanding. And then I was also servicing clients. I was working pretty much 24/7. I would work after work into the wee hours of the night, and then I wasn't going out on weekends. I was pretty much working Saturday and Sunday. So it was a lot, and I was really, really happy with it. But after doing it for a few years and not sleeping that much, my physical health and my mental health really deteriorated, and I had to come to terms with the fact that I just couldn't do this anymore. It just was not healthy, so things had to change. That was another thing I needed to accept as well. Finally, the last mindset shift that really helped me was recognizing that everything I was doing is temporary, and if I don't like it, I can change it. If I quit my job to do this full time and I realize I don't like it or it doesn't do well, then I can always get another job or I can start a new business. Everything's temporary, and all we can do is make the best decision in this current state with the information we have, with the circumstances we're dealt. If it doesn't work out, you can pivot and you can try something different, which is what I talked all about in my first career pivot video. Knowing that everything is temporary and you can always pivot, you can always switch if need be, that also gave me a lot of pressure relief because I was putting a lot of pressure on making like the perfect decision or the perfect move. So just knowing that everything will be okay and I can always do that was very, very helpful. And then when it came to my parents, I just decided I needed to do what was best for me. And I knew that they came from a place of love and care. And when they told me that they don't want me to quit my full-time job, but they still supported me, it was just like very difficult to navigate. And so quite honestly, I ended up quitting my job and then telling them after the fact. As someone that's been raised by Asian parents, there's a lot of obeyment and you want to not ruffle any feathers or whatever, but there comes a point in time that you need to stand up for yourself. And at the end of the day, it's your life. And I just knew that if I didn't do this, I would wonder for the rest of my life, what if? I truly, for the first time in my life, wanted to do something that I believed in, and I wanted to do something that would build trust with myself. And I knew I had built this beautiful business that I wanted to do full time, and I wanted to give it a go. And so I knew in my heart of hearts that I wanted to do this. And so I did it. Instead of asking for permission from my parents, I just told them. I just updated them. I informed them. They honestly took it better than I thought they would. I told my parents, like, hey, this is what I have planned. If things go to shit, I can get another job. Don't worry. You just kind of have to do it. And you need to do what's best for you. Like, you need to tune out the noise. You have to get quiet, get introspective, get deep, and think about what you want. And then you just execute it. You just deal with what comes. But after I quit, that was the first time in my life I felt this immense sense of peace just wash over me. I felt 15,000 pounds lighter. I felt like a big boulder had just lifted from my shoulders, and I just felt this big sense of relief, contentment, and peace that I had never felt before, because I think for the first time in my life, I had finally listened to what I wanted, and I had finally built up enough trust and confidence to go for it. I'm getting goosebumps right now, but it's still one of the proudest moments I've had. And even though I'm pivoting, we call it a little bit now, I am so proud of myself for doing that. And it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of guts to do something like that. But like I said in my last video, I do want you to be strategic about it. So be really, really, really mindful of your business savings, your business revenue, your personal savings, your personal salary, all that stuff. When it comes to the emotional stuff, I hope that these tools I've just outlined will help you, because I don't want you to have to wait 6 months, because as soon as I quit, I immediately was like, oh shit, I should have done this sooner. And I really wish I had, because that first year after I quit, Recloseted grew so much and I was able to travel, and I finally was able to sleep more than 4 hours a day, and it was just magical, and I finally got to take care of myself. So I definitely wish I did it sooner. Honestly, everything happens in its own time, and I was dealing with a lot of stuff personally, and you can't actually get over your self-sabotaging habits, all this stuff. So yeah, everything happens in its own time, but just know that the other side of it is magical. It's great, and I really wish I could have done it sooner, which is why I did this video, because I don't want you to have to go through this humming and hawing and existential crisis and mental breakdown cycle of 6 months, because that's ridiculous. If you know you need to do something, know you can take care of yourself, and you have a plan, you should just do it. So I hope that this was helpful to you. And if you are thinking of quitting your job, let me know in the comments. I want to cheer you on. If you have any other questions, leave them down below as well. And if you do finally quit your job, tag me in your Instagram stories at Selena J Ho, because I want to celebrate with you. I am always, always, always cheering you on, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.